Don't you worry, the clip's about to begin, but don't forget to subscribe. Or else. Don't make me turn this website around.
But let's go ahead and take some calls here. And we have David in Connecticut. You're on with Matt and Owen. How are you?
Hey, Matt. Hey, Owen. Pleasure to talk to both of you. I recently ran into a theodicy that I'd never seen before, and I'm an atheist, and I'm curious what you think of it. This came off Slate Star Codex. The idea is God is omnibenevolent. He wants there to be as much joy in the world as possible. He creates a world that is pure joy. Then he creates another universe that's 99% joy and 98% joy, and goes on down until he gets to 51, and he stops there because this maximizes the total amount of joy, even if some of these universes have negative emotions in them as well. What's your thought on that?
What sounds like the best of all possible worlds, that sort of line of argument, that what God through his infinite wisdom and omnibenevolence understands that a world that was pure and joyful just doesn't work. And so what God does is flips all the dials until he gets the best of all possible worlds, where while there's suffering, there's not egregious suffering, but there's still enough, because, putting your hand on a hot stove teaches you a lesson about, not doing that again. And there are things to learn from suffering. So it sounds like a version of that. The problem is it's a load of crap, because at least within Christianity,
well, hang on, the argument,
go ahead.
The argument is that there's multiple worlds. He's created multiple worlds, so we happen to live.
I have zero interest in multiple worlds. I live in this one. Everything else, every other multiple world that anyone is talking about is something they pulled right out of their butt until they have evidence for it.
Okay.
But
fair enough.
If the goal of Christianity is to get a select group of people to heaven, and heaven is a perfect place, then why not create people in that perfect place to begin with? And now my take on this could be potentially a little bit different from Owen's, because he's coming from a background that's different from mine. So try to jump in here, Owen. Let us know what you're thinking.
This is a little bit outside of my wheelhouse, what I normally talk about, so I will leave this one to you.
Alrighty. So when you're talking about this as a potential treatment of theodicy, is it the multiple worlds thing that was most intriguing?
Well, it's more, every other theodicy that I've run into was just bullshit on the face of it. But this one, I couldn't immediately point at an answer to why it was false. And so I thought I'd, ask somebody who knew more about this than I do, or had more experience with it.
Yeah. So this whole thing about, suffering, all of these lines of argument, they oversimplify things. It's like, oh, this is all about suffering. Well, who's suffering? How much suffering? How much suffering is too much? For me, when you have a world like my answer to this, and I don't find the problem of evil particularly impressive for me, but I understand there are many people who do, and it's why you don't hear me arguing that line very often. Because I grew up with the notion that the world that we live in, let me put my Jesus hat back on for a second. Oh, it's up there, but I won't have to put it on. The world that we live in is the best world that we could have, with sinful people betraying God. God created a world, and he didn't say it's perfect, and he didn't say it's great. In Genesis, he just says it was good. And then man came in and brought sin and death into the world. And that's what made this worse. Now, I think that's a cop-out, because if God is all powerful and God can do pretty much whatever he wants, then God, for example, didn't have to make us sexual creatures. We could have just been creatures. And if you remove sex, then that means that you remove rape and forced sex and a number of atrocities committed against people just left and right. It doesn't have to be that way. It didn't have to be this way. And so it's not just about, hey, how can God be all knowing and all and benevolent when there's so much seemingly egregious suffering in the world? Why are there kids who die 2 days after they were born of terrible, illnesses? That doesn't make any sense. Oh, well, God needed to teach their parents a lesson. Really? Your God is so inept that the best course of action he can come up with is to just kill a baby? I mean, I would think there would be better ways to teach a lesson, but I can't prove that. Maybe the only way for somebody to figure out that fire is bad is to burn themselves. And maybe the only way those parents could learn that lesson was by killing a kid. But if God can't come up with a better plan, and the only thing that theists can say in response to my responses to this is, God knows better than you. And even though it seems like you're smarter and it seems like you have a plan that is more moral, the truth is you don't know as much as God, so you're wrong. And in every instance, whether they're talking about multiple worlds or not, they're just claiming that there's a God who knows better and God who has perfect understanding of the universe. When they demonstrate that there's a God who does have perfect understanding of the universe, then I will acknowledge that there's someone who knows more about this subject than I do. But it doesn't change the fact that we live in a world where bad things happen. And what's the reason for it? I don't know. It seems to me that the best answer is that the universe just doesn't give a damn about us. We're not the purpose.
Right. Okay. All right. So basically the answer is we have no evidence of multiple worlds, and so the point is moot until we can prove that they exist. And there's
even if you showed, let's say we had evidence that there were 4 worlds. How do we quantify that one of them is 99% joyous, one of them's 82% joyous, one's 51% joyous, and one's 27% joyous? These are things that you can't quantify. Like every single aspect of this particular response is broken. All it's asserting is that there are multiple universes, each one with different amounts of joy, and we are in one of them. Well, are we in the one with 99% or 84% or 51 or 23 or what? And if there's one for all of them, how do you even tell which one we're in?
Well, what do you think of it?
Well, we're in one that doesn't have 100% joy, but we don't know which one we're in aside from that.
Do you buy this as an explanation, or
say again?
Do you buy this as a position? Do you buy it as an explanation? Do you think that this is how it works, or is this a rhetorical device you're using?
I do not believe this. No, I am not convinced this is correct. It relies on a lot of assumptions that there's no evidence for, like multiple worlds. But I don't have a clear answer to why it is not correct either, aside from we just don't have evidence for multiple worlds.
I don't know what it solves, because it seems to me what they're saying is, there are multiple universes with varying percentages of joy, and we happen to be in one. We're not sure which one it is. We know it's not the best one, or that we know it's not the most joyous one. But in much the same way that there's a Christian argument against life on other planets, because either those planets would have to be free from sin, because Christ came once to die for sinful mankind, or they're not subject to salvation. And wouldn't the same be true for multiple universes or a multiverse? So you've got someone who is claiming a multiverse with no reason to think a multiverse exists, a cascade or a collection of those universes with varying degrees of joy, which we can't quantify or identify. And I don't know what it solves, because all they're saying is, why is there suffering in the world? Well, if God has created a bunch of multiverses or a bunch of different universes with varying degrees of joy, from let's say 1% to 99%, then God is intentionally creating universes that are not particularly joyous, which doesn't solve the problem. It just adds the more problem. That means of all the universes in this multiverse that God supposedly created, half of them are shit.
Well, the premise of it is that he's trying to maximize the total joy in the cosmos. And so all of the universes have a positive balance of joy versus suffering. and
why would you, if you can have a universe with 99% joy, why would you, if you create one that also has 51% joy, you have not maximized. If you can have 99% in one universe, then if you create any other universe that has less than that, the math works out that you have diminished joy. So even the math doesn't.
You've diminished average joy, but not total joy.
Yes, you've diminished average joy. Because if with one of them at 99%, then you're at 99%.
Well, but the total amount of joy in the cosmos is larger.
No, but yes, but that's just boneheaded, because if you can have a universe with 99% joy, then just put 50 times the number of people in it, and all of a sudden you've increased the joy, the total number of joy.
I guess we need median joy, it seems to me, rather than average, right?
Yeah.
It seems like kind of a ridiculous argument at its base.
I mean, let's say the universe that has 99% joy has only 2 people in it. And the one that has 51% has 45 billion people in it. Okay, the total joy has gone up, but why not put 45 billion people in the universe with 99? Why not put everybody in all of the ones below that? Why not put all of them in the universe? Yeah.
Right, just collapse them all into the best one. That makes perfect sense. Thank you.
Now, there'll be somebody who'll come back from that and say, well, that's not possible, because like some people are just joyless, so you can't put them in a universe with 99%. But this is all post hoc rationalization stuff. But yeah.
Right.
So cheers,
Okay,
David.
cool.
You want to hang
Thank
up
you
on
very
us?
much.
Or you want? All right. Thank you, David. Appreciate it. I was going to give him the option of whether or not he want to hang up on us, but I think he did.
You jumped the gun.
It's always so much fun.
Hey, thanks for checking out this clip for The Line. While you're here, hit that like button, hit subscribe, turn on notifications, and then share this with that bitter uncle of yours who loves talking about the good old days.